I met August on a September afternoon, when the university campus still smelled of fresh sun and newly mowed grass. I was sitting on the steps in front of the main library, headphones on but no music playing, just to avoid interacting with the world. It was my sophomore year, and I thought I'd gotten used to being invisible, going to class, back to the dorm, writing papers, sleeping. Life was neat, quiet, with no gaps for pain. August appeared like a glitch in that order. He asked if I knew where the literature building was. Midwestern American accent, deep and slow, as if he wasn't in a hurry to become anyone. I took off one earbud, pointed, explained more than necessary. August smiled, a quiet smile, not trying to impress, but it made me feel seen. "Thanks," he said. "I'm August." "Bennett?" I replied, and my name sounded strange in my mouth, as if it hadn't been spoken by someone else in a long time. We didn't exchange numbers. No plans to meet. August walked away, leaving a thin void in the air, something I didn't know would grow over time. A week later, I saw him again in modern philosophy class. August sat 2 rows ahead, back straight, pencil tapping lightly on the edge of his notebook. I recognized him before he turned, as if some sense had been activated. When the professor called for group discussion, August turned, eyes searching, then stopping on me. "Bennett, right?" he asked, remembering my name easier than I'd expected. We talked about Sartre, about freedom and the burden of choice. August spoke slowly, choosing words carefully, while I spoke fast, as if afraid silence would betray something inside me. When the bell rang, we hadn't finished the conversation. From then on, August entered my life in small details. The familiar seat in the student cafe, where he always ordered an unsweetened latte. Late nights in the library, sitting across from each other, saying nothing but occasionally sharing a longer than normal glance. Walks back to the dorms together, cold weather, our sleeves brushing lightly. I didn't tell anyone about August. Not out of shame, but fear that naming the feeling would distort it. I'd had crushes before, fleeting, safe, leaving no trace. But with August, everything was different. He listened in a way that forced me to be honest. When I talked about growing up in a small town, about always shrinking to fit the mold, August didn't interrupt. He just nodded, as if memorizing every piece of me. One evening, after the library closed, we sat on the cold steps, watching the yellow lights reflect on the grass. August talked about his family, a mother who collected postcards, a father who was often silent, and a house always open but not always welcoming. "There are gaps," he said, eyes distant. "I don't know what to fill them with." That sentence stayed with me, quietly, like a seed. The moment I realized I loved August didn't come in an emotional storm. It came lightly on a rainy afternoon, when we sheltered under the art department's awning. August shivered from the cold, and I gave him my jacket. He put it on, zipped it up, and my familiar soap scent mixed with the rain in his hair. I thought, if this moment disappeared, I'd remember it for the rest of my life. We didn't say it. Not yet. There was a silent agreement, a fragile boundary both feared crossing. I told myself I was fine with just being friends, that being near August was enough. But every time he smiled, every time his hand brushed my wrist lightly, the gap inside me widened. I didn't know that gap one day would take the shape of August, and only him. Everything between me and August drifted in a suspended state hard to name. We weren't dating, nor were we just friends. There were mornings I woke to his messages. A question about a reading, a link to indie music he thought I'd like, and my heart beat faster than usual, as if my body knew what my mind tried to deny. October came, bringing cold winds and changing leaves. The campus became painfully beautiful. August and I started a habit of walking around the small lake behind the social sciences building every Thursday evening. No clear reason. Just after class, one of us would text, "Walk?" and the other always replied, "Yeah." We talked about unimportant things, bad cafeteria food, a strict professor, vague news from the outside world. But beneath that was the unsaid, taut like a string. I felt it in how August slowed to match my pace, in how he tilted his head to listen, as if every word I said was worth preserving. One evening, as we sat on the wooden bench by the lake, August asked if I'd ever thought about leaving this place. What do you mean? I asked. After graduation, he said. Leaving this city. Leaving what's familiar. I was silent for a moment. I'd never allowed myself to think that far. I don't know, I said honestly. I tend to stay in safe things. August nodded, as if that answer confirmed something he'd guessed. I'm the opposite, he said. I always think about going, but I'm not sure if I'm running toward something or just away from the gaps. He used that word again. Gaps. I looked at August, at his features in the dim light, and suddenly wanted to touch him. Not hastily, but like a gentle question. I did nothing. The silence between us stretched, not uncomfortable, but heavy. When August stood, brushing dry leaves from his pants, he held out his hand. I took it, and in that moment our hands fit perfectly, terrifyingly so. I felt his warmth, a small current running up my arm. Neither pulled away right away. After that night, everything changed. Not with a shock, but in tiny ways. August started sitting closer in class. He leaned his shoulder against mine when we watched movies in the dorm common room. I left my hand there longer than necessary, pretending not to notice the growing intimacy. I started to fear. Fear because I wanted more. Fear because I didn't know what August wanted. There were days he was so close I thought just one more step. Then days he became distant, eyes drifting somewhere I couldn't follow. One late night, studying in my room, August suddenly asked, Bennett, do you ever feel like you're living a smaller version of yourself? The question stopped me. I looked at him, saw the rare seriousness in his eyes. Yes, I said. Almost always. August exhaled, as if he'd been holding his breath too long. Me too. The distance between us was just inches. I could hear his breathing, feel the hesitation. The world shrank to the small room, yellow light, and two boys standing before an invisible boundary. I was the one who broke it. I leaned in very slowly, giving him time to pull back if he wanted. August didn't. When our lips touched, it wasn't a perfect kiss. It was awkward, a bit shaky, carrying all the unsaid things. But it was real. Enough that I had to grab his hand to steady myself. August responded gently but firmly. In that moment I thought, maybe this is how gaps are filled, not with certainty, but with courage. After the kiss, we said nothing. August rested his forehead against mine, eyes closed. I didn't know what the future held. I just knew that, from that moment, my safe life had a crack, and I didn't want to patch it. After that kiss, August didn't stay the night. He grabbed his jacket, smiled lightly, and said, I need time to sort my head. I nodded, pretending I understood, though inside was a tangled mess of emotions. When the door closed, I stood still for a long time, my hand still feeling the warmth where he'd held it. The days after dragged unbelievably slow. August didn't disappear. He still texted, still sat next to me in class, but a new reserve appeared, as if we were relearning how to exist together. I didn't dare ask what he thought of the kiss. I feared the answer would shatter the fragile thing just born. Instead, we let things continue in silence. One Saturday evening, August invited me to a small party at his friend's off-campus apartment. I didn't like parties, but I said yes because August would be there. Music played not too loud, the smell of beer and pizza mixing. I stood next to August, shoulder to shoulder, like a habit formed without discussion. Someone asked if we were a couple. August laughed, shook his head, said, just friends. That answer wasn't wrong, but it stung my chest, a small but sharp pain. I turned away, pretending to look for a drink, so August wouldn't see my expression. That night, when we left the party early, it was very cold. We walked in silence, breaths forming thin mists. Near the dorms, August stopped. Bennett, he said, voice low. I'm sorry if I'm confusing you. I looked at him, trying to keep my voice calm. You don't owe me an apology. August frowned, as if that didn't reassure him. I'm not good with things that aren't clear. Me neither, I replied. And this time we laughed. A tired but genuine laugh. Things truly changed the night we studied late for midterms. The library was closing, so we brought books to my room. August sat on the floor, back against the bed, while I sat at the desk. The closeness no longer felt awkward. It became familiar, almost necessary. Around midnight, August told me about his first relationship. A high school friend, secret, ending in silence and unforgiven things. He spoke very slowly, as if each word had to cross a barrier. I thought, August said, eyes on the floor, that if I didn't expect anything, I wouldn't get hurt. I sat down next to him. But you still got hurt. August nodded. Yeah. I don't know who started it, just that I put my arm around his shoulder, and August leaned his head on my chest, naturally. I could hear his heartbeat, faster than usual. This time, when I kissed his hair, August didn't pull away. He looked up, and our kiss this time was different. Slower, deeper, carrying acknowledgement. August whispered my name, like a confession. We didn't say love. We didn't name the relationship. But from that night, August stayed over more often. We woke up together, shared morning coffee, unconscious touches. I started imagining a future with him in it. Small, everyday things. Then one afternoon, August told me he'd applied for an exchange program next semester at another university, across the country. The words fell between us like a heavy object. You're going? I asked, though I knew the answer. August nodded, eyes full of conflict. I think I need to. I said nothing more. I just hugged him tight, as if I could keep him with the force of silence. But right then I understood the gap August always talked about. Perhaps soon it would bear his name in my life. I didn't ask August when he'd get the results. I didn't ask because I feared the answer would make it more real than I could bear. Instead, we lived in a suspended time, where each day felt both precious and fragile. We still met almost every day. August slept over in my room more, but those nights weren't completely carefree. I started memorizing small details, the way he hogged most of the blanket, the way he squinted at texts, the way he went quiet when thinking. I memorized as if some part of me knew I'd need these memories to go on. One morning, as I brushed my teeth in the dorm's shared bathroom, August stood behind me, arms around my waist. It was an ordinary gesture, very us. I looked at us in the mirror. Two guys, hair still messy, eyes still sleepy, and thought, if this is a stolen moment, I'm willing to pay the price. What are you thinking? August asked, chin on my shoulder. Nothing, I lied. The truth was I was thinking about how much losing him would hurt. The exchange results came on a rainy afternoon. August texted, I got in. Just 4 words, but enough to make my hands shake. I left the library early, walked in the rain to the small apartment where August was crashing. When he opened the door, I saw in his eyes a joy mixed with fear, an expression I'd never seen so clearly. Congratulations, I said, and hugged him. This time, my arms weren't tight, as if I feared squeezing too hard would break everything. We sat on the sofa, silent for a long time. Finally, August spoke. I don't want to hurt you. That made me laugh. A short, hoarse laugh. But you're still going. August didn't deny it. Yeah. That night, we were together in a different way. Not rushed, not hidden. We said things we'd avoided, about the fear of being left behind, about not belonging anywhere. When we touched, it wasn't just desire, but holding on. I felt August as a whole entity, warmth, breaths, small sighs, and thought if this was the last time, I wanted to remember it all. The following weeks passed cruelly fast. We didn't talk much about the goodbye day, but it was present in everything, in hurried meals, in how August looked around campus like saying farewell. I started feeling a gap form even while he was still here. The day August left, I took him to the airport. We stood before security, his suitcase between us like an uncrossable boundary. August kissed me. Not hurried, not sneaky, and whispered, "You've changed me more than you think." I didn't know how to respond. I just watched as he turned, step by step, until he disappeared in the crowd. The gap then wasn't loud. It was quiet, deep, and spreading in me. The days without August, I learned to exist with absence. I sat in the familiar cafe spot, but the opposite chair was empty. I walked around the lake alone. I realized loving someone isn't just having them near, but letting them leave traces in every corner of your life. August still texted, called, but the distance wasn't just geographic. Gradually, his life filled with new things, while mine revolved around old gaps. I didn't blame him. I just learned to live with the longing, a longing that didn't break me but didn't let go. And in all that, I understood. The gap August left wasn't something to fill. It was part of me now, a proof that I'd loved, dared, and lost. The new semester started without August, like entering a familiar room but with furniture rearranged. Everything was still there. Classes, hallways, bells, but the order had changed. I chose a seat by the window in philosophy, not for the light, but because that's where August once sat. I told myself it wasn't intentional, just habit. But habit is a form of longing too. We video called every Sunday night. August talked about the new school. A coastal city, strong winds, more open people. I listened, smiled at the right times, asked just enough. I learned to hide the feeling of being left behind, as if watching his life through a clean but cold glass window. "You look better," August said in one call, voice softening. "Yeah," I replied. "I'm fine." That wasn't entirely a lie. I was really learning to stand on my own. I joined the school's writing club, read my short pieces to strangers. The first time I wrote about August, not naming him, just calling him a breathing gap. When I finished, the room was silent for a few seconds. Then someone said, "Sounds like something very real." I carried that comment back to my room, thinking maybe pain has its value. Time does strange things. It doesn't make longing disappear, just changes its shape. August became a familiar voice in my head, an invisible standard for intimacy. I compared everyone to him, how they listened, how they were silent. No one was like August, and I gradually understood that was both sad and necessary. One evening near the end of the semester, August texted, "Can I visit?" My heart beat faster, as if my body remembered him before I could think. I replied yes, then sat still for a long time, staring at the screen. August came back on a cold afternoon, bringing the scent of sea wind and a bit of strangeness. When we met outside the dorm, the initial hug was a bit awkward, as if retesting boundaries. But then things eased. We ate at the old place, walked around the lake. Conversation flowed, but with pauses, things both knew but didn't say. That night, August stayed in my room. We lay next to each other, not touching right away. When August turned, placed his hand on my chest, I closed my eyes, let the feeling spread. But it wasn't the same as before. It was softer, deeper, with a quiet sadness. "Bennett," August said softly, "do you ever think, what if things were different?" I opened my eyes, looked at him in the dark. "Yes, but I don't want to live in hypotheticals." August was silent. I knew he understood. The next morning we parted again, gentler, fewer tears. As I watched August go, I felt the gap he left wasn't a deep hole anymore, but a space I could step into without fear of falling. I don't know where the future will take me. I just know August is part of me, not as an open wound, but as a healed scar. And in that gap, I started hearing my own voice, clearer than ever. Spring came slowly, as if the campus needed time to learn to breathe again after a long winter. New buds appeared on the trees along the main path, and students started sitting on the grass, laughing as if sadness only existed in previous semesters. I changed too, in a quiet way. I no longer checked my phone right when I woke to see if August had texted. Not because I didn't care, but because I no longer based my life's rhythm on the gaps between messages. We still talked, but less often, naturally as things should when two people keep moving forward. There were days I remembered him vividly. Remembered enough that a strange scent in the library or an old song in the cafe made my heart sink. But I didn't fight the feeling anymore. I let it come, sit for a while, then move on. I learned that longing isn't something to conquer. It's just a sign you've lived very real. One afternoon, in the last philosophy class before graduation, the professor asked a seemingly simple question. What makes a life meaningful? Students gave all kinds of answers: success, family, passion. I sat quiet, thinking of August, thinking of late study nights, awkward kisses, incomplete goodbyes. I thought of the gap he left and how it shaped me. When it was my turn, I said, "A meaningful life is when you allow someone to change you and accept that the change stays, even when they're no longer by your side." The professor nodded. I don't know how much he understood, but I knew I'd said the truest part of myself. Graduation day came faster than I imagined. My family was there, taking photos, hugging me tight. August sent a short message. "Proud of you." I smiled, put the phone down, and walked on stage when my name was called. That night, I went back to the old dorm room, the room that had once been my and August's world. I stood in the empty room, listening to the echoes of the past. I didn't feel pain, just a deep quiet, like a lake after wind. I realized the gap August left wasn't a sign of loss, but proof of love that existed. It reminded me I could connect, love deeply, and that didn't vanish with him. I closed the door, stepped outside, carrying that gap like invisible luggage. Not heavy, not empty, just present. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid of what's missing in my life. Because I knew, in those gaps, I'd learned to become Bennett, whole, fragile, and brave enough to love again.